Debbie Reynolds and Elizabeth Taylor's friendship began long before the scandal that would later define their public personas. Both were young stars under the MGM banner, and Hollywood in the 1940s and 50s was a world where carefully curated images and studio contracts dictated lives. Yet amidst all the glitz, there was genuine connection. Debbie, with her girl-next-door charm and bubbly energy, had a warmth that contrasted Elizabeth's sultry, enigmatic presence. Despite these differences, they found common ground in the pressures of being young women in a cutthroat industry. The studios frequently paired them for publicity events, photo shoots, and film premieres, giving fans a glimpse of what appeared to be an unbreakable bond. Behind the cameras, they shared private conversations, supported each other through auditions, and celebrated each other's milestones. Debbie often described Elizabeth as intelligent, witty, and fearless, a combination that drew people in and made her magnetic. Elizabeth, on the other hand, admired Debbie's sincerity and work ethic, qualities that balanced her own flamboyant tendencies. It wasn't just professional admiration. It was a friendship that felt real in a world built on facades. Hollywood gossip columns often highlighted their outings together, fueling speculation about whether their closeness would evolve into something more than friendship. Fans adored them as a pair, seeing them as the perfect blend of glamour and relatability. But the real story was what they shared behind closed doors. Long conversations about dreams, fears, and the unique challenges of growing up in front of the world. They laughed together, cried together, and leaned on one another in moments when studio demands and media scrutiny felt suffocating. This foundation of trust and camaraderie would later make the betrayal that came next all the more shocking, not just for the public, but for the women themselves. Their friendship, as ordinary as it seemed in private and extraordinary in public, set the stage for one of Hollywood's most notorious dramas. Without understanding the depth of this bond, the later scandal loses much of its emotional weight. The bond between Debbie Reynolds and Elizabeth Taylor was tested in a way neither could have anticipated. In 1958, tragedy struck when Elizabeth's husband, Mike Todd, a charming and larger-than-life figure in Hollywood, died in a sudden plane crash. The loss was devastating, leaving Elizabeth heartbroken and navigating grief under the relentless glare of the public eye. Hollywood whispered, fans mourned, and everywhere Elizabeth went, cameras and reporters followed. In those days, privacy was nearly impossible, and grief became a public spectacle. Amid this heartache, Eddie Fisher, Debbie's husband at the time, stepped in to offer comfort. Eddie was a popular singer, beloved for his smooth voice and charismatic persona, and he had been a close friend to both Debbie and Mike Todd. What I began as a supportive gesture, holding a hand, offering solace, sharing quiet conversations, soon spiraled into something far more complicated. Rumors started to circulate, though initially quietly, about a growing closeness between Eddie and Elizabeth. For Debbie, it must have felt like the world had shifted under her feet, though she had no idea how the story would unfold in public. The scandal erupted when it became undeniable. Eddie had left Debbie for Elizabeth. The timing added to the shock. Debbie had just endured personal trials, and now her best friend, someone she had trusted and shared her life with, was at the center of her most painful betrayal. Hollywood's gossip mills exploded overnight, painting the love triangle as one of the decade's most sensational stories. Fans were scandalized, and the press spared no detail. Debbie's pain was magnified by public scrutiny, while Elizabeth faced judgment for what many called a seduction during a period of mourning. This betrayal was more than a tabloid story. It was deeply personal. Debbie's marriage ended, her friendship fractured, and both women were thrust into a relentless spotlight. The intensity of this scandal would define public perceptions of their relationship for decades. Yet, beneath the sensational headlines, there were raw human emotions: grief, confusion, anger, and heartbreak. And what happened next would cement this chapter in Hollywood history as unforgettable and painful. The aftermath of Eddie Fisher leaving Debbie Reynolds for Elizabeth Taylor sent shockwaves through Hollywood and beyond. For Debbie, the betrayal was not just personal. It was public, brutal, and unavoidable. The press turned her heartbreak into front-page fodder, analyzing every tear, every comment, and every appearance with relentless scrutiny. Headlines screamed of scandal, painting Debbie as the wronged wife and Elizabeth as the audacious seductress. In a world obsessed with gossip, there was no hiding, no private grieving. Debbie's life had suddenly become a spectacle, her pain displayed for millions to consume. Debbie later described her feelings with a mix of raw honesty and restrained wit. She took Eddie without an invitation, she remarked, a statement that captured both the sense of shock and the sting of betrayal. Friends and colleagues offered sympathy, but Hollywood can be a lonely place when scandal strikes. Social circles shifted, whispers filled dressing rooms, and even casual acquaintances seemed to watch for reactions like spectators at a match. Every public appearance became a test of composure, and every interaction with Elizabeth, should it occur, was loaded with tension and unspoken emotion. Elizabeth, too, faced immense pressure. Though some labeled her heartless or opportunistic, she was also grieving the loss of Mike Todd, a husband she had loved deeply. The juxtaposition of mourning and new romance made her a lightning rod for criticism. Interviews and public statements did little to quell the firestorm. Fans debated morality, loyalty, and friendship, while the studios tried to manage damage to the star's images. The affair left an indelible mark on both women, altering perceptions that had once been shaped by charm, talent, and early promise. Beyond the headlines, the emotional toll was profound. Debbie wrestled with betrayal, public humiliation, and the painful unraveling of a treasured friendship. Elizabeth navigated grief compounded by judgment and intense media scrutiny. For years, the rift between them defined not only their personal lives, but the narrative of Hollywood's golden age, A.B. Howe's story of friendship, heartbreak, and the consequences of choices made in the unforgiving glare of fame. After the scandal, Debbie Reynolds and Elizabeth Taylor entered a period of silence that stretched for years. Their friendship, once filled with laughter and shared secrets, was now fractured, leaving a void neither could easily bridge. Hollywood, ever hungry for drama, speculated endlessly about the state of their relationship. Magazines and newspapers ran stories, each trying to capture the emotions behind closed doors, but the truth was far more complex than headlines suggested. The silence wasn't just about pride, it was about healing, processing betrayal, and navigating personal pain under the unrelenting gaze of the public. Debbie threw herself into her career and her family. She focused on raising her children and maintaining her own projects, determined to find stability amid the chaos. Interviews often revealed subtle hints of lingering hurt. Though Debbie was careful not to descend into bitterness, she learned to navigate life with grace, using humor and poise as shields. Elizabeth, meanwhile, moved through her own challenges. Multiple marriages and the pressures of fame shaped her next decade, keeping her in the public eye, but distant from the friendship she once cherished. Each encounter with the other, planned or accidental, was carefully measured, a dance of avoidance that protected both from reopening old wounds. During this estrangement, fans and media alike speculated about whether the two women would ever reconcile. Stories painted them as rivals, as cautionary tales of friendship and betrayal in Hollywood. Yet beneath the surface, the bond they had formed early in their careers never entirely disappeared. Time, distance, and personal growth began to soften the sharp edges of betrayal. Both women experienced loss, love, and the challenges of aging, gaining perspective that would eventually make reconciliation possible. These years of silence were crucial. They allowed Debbie and Elizabeth to understand the depth of their feelings, to grieve and to grow independently. Though it seemed like the end of their friendship, it was actually a period of transformation, quiet, painful, but ultimately necessary for healing. The story was far from over, and what came next would surprise everyone who thought the feud was permanent. After years of estrangement, the friendship between Debbie Reynolds and Elizabeth Taylor took an unexpected turn. Neither woman anticipated reconciliation, yet fate seemed to have its own plans. In the 1960s, they found themselves in close proximity during a social event, a cruise ship where both happened to be traveling alone. The encounter could have been awkward, tense, or even hostile given their history, but Debbie decided to take a chance. She sent Elizabeth a simple note, a gesture that would change everything. To her surprise, Elizabeth responded warmly, inviting her to dinner. It was a small step, but it carried enormous significance. That evening marked the beginning of a slow but meaningful rebuilding of trust. The women spoke candidly about the past, addressing unspoken grievances with honesty and, surprisingly, humor. They reflected on the scandal, the heartbreak, and the years of silence, acknowledging the pain without letting it define their future. Elizabeth, known for her dramatic flair, even seemed to appreciate Debbie's direct, grounded approach to life. Laughter returned to their conversations, and old memories, shared adventures, behind-the-scenes stories, and moments of genuine connection rekindled the bond they had once cherished. Years later, this renewed connection culminated in a professional collaboration on the 2001 TV movie These Old Broads, written by Debbie's daughter, Carrie Fisher. The project wasn't just a reunion on screen, it was a symbolic reconciliation. One of the film's most memorable moments was a scene in which Elizabeth's character offers a heartfelt apology to Debbie's, a nod to the real-life wounds that had once divided them. Audiences couldn't help but sense the authenticity behind their performances. Decades of history, forgiveness, and understanding embedded in every glance and line. This unexpected reunion proved that even the deepest betrayals could be navigated with patience, courage, and empathy. Their story transformed from scandal to a lesson in resilience and the enduring power of friendship. It showed that reconciliation is rarely easy, but when it comes, it can be profoundly healing for everyone involved. In her later years, Debbie Reynolds often reflected on her complicated relationship with Elizabeth Taylor, with a mix of humor, honesty, and grace. What had once been a story of betrayal and heartbreak had, over time, become a lesson in forgiveness and perspective. Debbie acknowledged the pain she endured when her best friend and husband were at the center of Hollywood's most notorious scandal. But she also recognized that holding on to anger served no one. Her reflections revealed a woman who had grown through adversity, transforming personal tragedy into insight and resilience. Debbie often spoke about the unique bond she shared with Elizabeth before the scandal, emphasizing the depth of their friendship and the real affection that had existed. She understood that human emotions are complex, and that love, grief, and desire can collide in ways that are difficult to navigate, even for the strongest of friendships. While the affair had left scars, the passage of time allowed both women to appreciate the nuances of their connection. They could acknowledge mistakes, accept the consequences, and, crucially, move forward without bitterness. By the time they reconciled, the narrative had shifted. What was once public humiliation and media fodder became a testament to the resilience of human relationships. Debbie often pointed out that the world tends to remember scandal, but the true story lies in the reconciliation, the laughter restored, and the shared memories that endured. She emphasized that Elizabeth was, in many ways, irreplaceable in her life, not because of the betrayal, but because of the friendship that had lasted decades despite it. Debbie's reflections remind us that forgiveness is not weakness. It's a choice to value connection over resentment. She and Elizabeth proved that even the most painful chapters can lead to healing, understanding, and renewed respect. Their story is more than Hollywood gossip. It's a narrative about the human capacity to endure, to forgive, and to find meaning in relationships that survive both time and turmoil. The journey of Debbie Reynolds and Elizabeth Taylor is a tale of friendship, betrayal, heartbreak, and ultimately, forgiveness. From the early days at MGM, when they were inseparable companions navigating the pressures of Hollywood, to the scandal that erupted when Eddie Fisher left Debbie for Elizabeth, their story captivated the public and reshaped their lives. What could have been a permanent rift instead became a testament to the resilience of human connection. Their eventual reconciliation, sparked by a simple note, a candid dinner, and later, a collaboration on These Old Broads, showed that even the deepest wounds can be healed when honesty, courage, and empathy are present. Debbie's reflections in her later years emphasized that while betrayal leaves scars, it does not have to define a friendship or a life. They reminded us that human relationships are complex, layered with joy, pain, mistakes, and growth. This story resonates because it goes beyond Hollywood drama. It illustrates the power of forgiveness and the enduring nature of genuine bonds. The public witnessed the scandal, but the private journey, filled with reflection, understanding, and laughter, reclaimed, offers a more profound lesson. Debbie and Elizabeth's story encourages us to look beyond initial judgments and consider the long arc of friendship, with all its messiness and beauty. Ultimately, their narrative reminds us that even in the most tumultuous relationships, reconciliation is possible, trust can be rebuilt, bonds can be restored, and shared history can transform pain into a deeper connection. It's a story that continues to inspire, showing that time, patience, and empathy can turn heartbreak into a powerful testament to the human spirit. If you found this story captivating, don't forget to like and subscribe for more tales from Hollywood's golden era.